How did Derrick from State Champs become a thing on Float Away?
We had a couple other feature ideas and stuff, some stuff that didn't pan out, some stuff we weren't necessarily allowed to do, reasons I can't really say, but like Derrick was a no-brainer for us. Doug just texted him and was like, hey man, want to hop on a song? And Derrick was like, sure. And it was very, very natural, very easy. He just agreed to do it. He sent us over the feature and we really, really liked it. So
now I want to know about all the things that you weren't allowed to do.
You're listening to OurSpace with Matt Batiste.
Bearings are back with a brand new record called Comfort Company. It is out on November 7th. The record is raw, honest, full of heart, and I've got Collin from the band here to talk to me about the album, how as a band they've gone through it all and more. Collin, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Dude, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
What's it like now? You guys are 4 albums deep with Comfort Company on the way. Like, how does that feel?
Honestly, it's kind of surreal in a way. Like there is like, when we were doing like our first record, like part of me is like, oh, imagine we got to do this again, and now it's honestly like routine in terms of like when we were getting ready to do it, it was just like, all right, like let's get started. And it feels very natural to go and record a record together now, but it's also, and like, we know there's a lot less like hurdles to jump over. We know how to write a record together. We know how to manage each other as well. So we're more excited about it in terms of like, it's more simple now. Honestly, it feels like we know how to do it. So it feels really, really good to be doing a 4th record.
Yeah, I guess a lot of experience kind of comes into play at that point.
Definitely, because like, I mean, as much as like we were friends before the band, like for a little bit, but like we all kind of met in college and started doing the band right away. So when you start, writing and recording together, you've got to learn each other as well, because, you don't want to like step on anyone's toes writing wise. You don't want to do anything to piss anybody off. And you don't know what everyone's, writing style is at the time or how everyone goes about creating new music. So it took us a couple albums to almost like get used to each other and learn that. And now it's like we get into a room and it just kind of happens naturally.
And, you're saying get into a room. Before we hit record, we were kind of briefly talking a little bit about how the band is kind of split up around, I want to say, the world at this point now. You're in Ottawa. You said a couple of guys are in the greater Toronto area. And then I think you said Doug is out in LA. So how does that kind of all come into play when you're doing something like writing a record or planning a tour?
Well, for writing a record, for either of the things, it's a lot of phone calls, a lot of hopping on FaceTime. But in terms of like, so for the album, we kind of come up with a bit of a plan where we set out and we said, all right, well, we want to record a record. And then it's like, well, how are we going to do this record? Because, we've done in the past, we've had some records have a lot of like co-writes and like where we've done sessions with other guys. And we kind of said we didn't want to do that for this record. So for this one, it was very like, all right, let's get together. And, like the central area for us is like Toronto, basically. So let's get together. And we went up to a cottage for a few weeks and we just spent weeks just writing songs. And it was just every day, wake up, what are we working on today, guys? And just starting, it was cool because we're at a cottage. So at night we could have bonfires, we can have some drinks and, like we've got like boat to go out on the water and all that kind of stuff. So it was very relaxing in that way. So that's kind of like how we approach it. We get together and we write the bones of the record, essentially. We're writing, like we honestly would do like, hey, let's write a verse chorus and decide if we like the idea. If not, let's move on and work on the next idea. And it was cool. We got to experiment, and there's like a bunch of songs that like didn't make the record, but we still thought they were really cool. But it was easier to hone in on a sound when we wrote the entire record, at least like 90% of the record, like all together. And we all had some like a little bit of influence on different songs. Some people had more or less, but like it's just very cool to collectively come together and be able to write it all almost in one sitting. Besides the stuff, we wrote more in the studio, and one song came like after, but actually like it was very easy to have like a clear vision this time around rather than the past where it's like, all right, what songs we got, like we've written a few here and there. Let's collect what we've got and create a record out of it. And now it was like, all right, let's focus and make Comfort Company. We didn't know it was called that beforehand, but we were able to actually like come up with more of a theme and like write in that style and go, does this match what we're trying to do? And that felt really good.
How long did it take for you to write this record?
When I say that we started writing, like we did 3 weeks of writing in the cottage, but however, like a lot of the ideas like come from Doug's, like, you know, Doug will have like a voice memo where he'll come up with a acoustic guitar and like vocals for like a chorus idea. And then we'll build on that. Or maybe it's a full-fledged song and we like spice it up a little. But so the songs had, you know, some of the songs like were like little acoustic demos that were, you know, a few years old or whatever. So some of them had like the idea came years ago, and then some of them we came up with on the spot. But so in terms of like, hey, we are deciding to write a record, everyone bring your ideas in. It took about 3 weeks of writing and then another couple weeks in the studio with our producer where we really fleshed things out. And then we all started tracking the parts. So overall, like starting at the cottage to being done in the studio, probably about 2 months, maybe a little bit longer, but like with some breaks in between there. Some of that is working, you know, just on the evenings if there was something else going on, but like about 2 months, I would say.
You've touched on how, you know, making this record was, I guess, a little bit easier, smoother in a sense of, you know, you've had that experience behind you. Was this the fastest record you've ever put out or written?
That's tough to say. I mean, because I feel like this is the first time we kind of did it in this sense, you know, where we all like had like I said, a few weeks of writing all together. Whereas in the past, it had been like, we might like, you know, write a couple songs together and then not see each other for a couple months. And then those two songs, like, for example, I remember we went and recorded our third record, The Best Part of It Being Human. We recorded it in August of 2022. But like, I remember we were writing songs for that record like 6 months before that, because we knew we were like, oh, we're probably going to be doing a record later this year. So we had like, we wrote Scenery and Don't Want to Forget About It right at the same time together. And then some of those other songs were writing session songs where we would go and write with Alan Day. And we did that before, you know, a few weeks out. So it's probably the fastest a record has come together in terms of like, we are starting it and then it was finished within a couple months. But in terms of the amount of time, it's probably the most amount of time we've put into a record as a collective, like where like all of us are together and doing it. So it's probably in some ways, yes, in some ways, no.
I know the band recorded this new record back at Room 21, which is the same place that you did your early stuff. What was that like?
Honestly, it was funny, like walking in the first day and we all sat down. We went, holy shit, we're back, you know? Oh, sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, but
yeah, you're good.
Okay. But I was just like, oh my God, we're back. You know, like who would have thought, you know, like we were 20 and 21 coming in here for the first time. And now we're all pushing 30 and we're back. And it felt like, it honestly just felt like, here we go again. You know, it didn't really feel like oh man, we're coming back to our roots. It was just like, nah, this is us. Like, you know, we've done it with other producers and like we've done a couple records in LA, but like it felt really, really good coming back. Cause like that was the thing, is like we got to go home a bunch of the nights, or at least, you know, like I don't live in Toronto, but like, you know, staying somewhere rather than being at some like crappy motel or like staying at Airbnb where we're all cramped in there. Everyone could kind of go home and do their own thing every night, which felt really, really good, you know?
Yeah, you get a nice break from everything afterwards.
Exactly. And you don't feel like you're in band mode 24/7 for a month straight, you know, and where this is more like, hey, you're almost like going into work, but work is awesome because you just get to write and record music. So you
can also have a nice home cooked meal instead of going and pick up fast food every day.
Yeah, so McDonald's gets pretty old after a while for sure.
The album deals with growing older, figuring out what moving forward really means. So what were sort of some of the moments that really inspired that?
I can't really speak too much on the lyrical content, as Doug does, he heads most of that. But what I will say is that I feel like we did have a certain attitude going into the record, which I definitely think helped shape the themes and everything like that. And that we're, you know, we're getting to a point, we're getting older, and we're, it's kind of like dealing with getting towards the end of your 20s, and, what do you have to show for it, and where are we? And, being in a band is a very tough thing. So it takes a toll on your mental. So I feel like we had those kind of thoughts going into that, like, oh my God, we're almost 30 now and we're still doing this. It's awesome that we're still doing this, but like, where are we in life? And kind of like, and getting to write and have that in the back of your mind almost does play into the record itself. So it's funny because we kind of went back to basics, and there's this like youthful sense to the music in a way. Like a lot of it is a little bit more like fun and like guitar driven, but then some of the songs are a little bit less like happy lyrically and more so like, where am I going and what am I doing? So
are you a fan of the Menzingers?
Love the Menzingers. And I would probably say After the Party is a big influence on this record for us. Like a lot.
That's where I was going. Is this your After the Party?
It kind of is. Yeah. Where we're going to go that our 20s are over. Like, yeah, it is kind of we are very influenced. Like, at least I know me, Doug, and Ryan. I know Mike likes them too, but like we've been obsessed with After the Party since it came out, and it's I love all of the Menzingers stuff, but that album holds a special place in my heart, and I definitely see this as kind of like it's almost an homage to that, like, because we definitely feel some of that record's lyrical content. We feel it ourselves, so. It's that's actually, it's funny. I haven't really thought about it, but now that you say it, I'm like, yeah, definitely. Like,
you're like talking about how this is your record taking you out of your 20s. And I just remember it wasn't that long ago that I was 29 going into 30. And man, the amount of times I listened to After the Party.
Dude, I can only see it came out like I think I was 22 or 23 when it came out. So that's a record that I loved when it came out. And as I've gotten older, I even appreciate it even more now, Now that I am 30, I'm like, oh man, like, where am I going?
And then all you do is, as you get older, you just move in and relate to the rest of their catalog, the newer parts of their, right? Then it's like, I'm fully expecting that by the time I get to my 40s, which, a lifetime from now, it'll come fast, but it's a lifetime from now. But then maybe Hell of Exile will hit a lot more, just as much as After the Party does.
Yeah, absolutely. No, 100%. Yeah, that band's incredible. I have only good things to say about them.
But you've mentioned wanting to bring back more rawness and less production polish this time around. So how exactly do you go about doing that intentionally?
Well, it was talking with our producer, Kyle Marchand, an amazing dude. He's worked with us for a little bit now. And once the first day we got into the studio with him, we were doing some deluxe songs for our last record. And we just decided to do it with him because our producer, who did The Best Part About Being Human, he recommended, he's like, hey, like, I can't come to Canada for this and you guys can't come to LA. So how about you guys just do it with Kyle, and and Sam was still a part of it, but Kyle engineered. And as soon as we started working with Kyle, we were just like, oh, this is like our guy. Like, he's so cool. So when we approached him about doing a record, we sat down with him and we basically said like, hey, like we want to do a record with you. But the thing is, like, we are really looking to, because our whole thing was, we started just playing songs in a room together, just our guitars and instruments, and just, jamming it out. And we kind of said, like, we want to go back to that because we love all of our music, but like some of our, favorite material is some of our older stuff. So it was very much like, hey, why don't we get back to that? And when we told him we want to do a raw record, he was very on board and he understood it. And we kind of just, we gave him some, we love, like, I don't know if you know the band The Dirty Nil. We love the way like their records sound. And we were like, if we could get like a guitar driven, like, huge sounding record, like something like that, that would be really awesome. And he was fully on board. So it goes back to like, using, rather than using Kemper plugins and stuff, using real amps and recording, everything kind of raw. And so doing that, as well as like, there was even almost a less emphasis with Kyle on the performance in terms of like, hey, it doesn't have to be perfect note for note to the grid, where it's like, oh, if we're going to nudge it even just to like, if it was a little sloppy, but it sounds good, that's okay, and having that kind of mindset. And it's like, oh, your voice cracked, but it actually kind of adds a little bit of flair. Keep it in, you know what I mean? So doing that kind of stuff is basically what we wanted with the Raw record. We just didn't want it to be so perfect and polished, which not to say we don't love the records we've done like that, because we really, really do. We just, I think we've been very into like a little bit more of a punk rock sound recently. So we were very excited to do that.
Do you feel like you get that reaction more so from fans? Like, did that inspire it? Or was it just more kind of like, no, this is what we're really into right now, and this is what we want to do?
It's interesting because I think that there's a lot of people, like fans too, who will come to us after like a live show. And even when we're playing, more like poppy songs from our catalog or anything that's like a little bit less guitar driven, we do beef it up live. And some people have come up and said, and they're like, hey, I've heard your band before. And I always thought you guys were cool, but like live, you guys are like really bring it. And, and we're like, if we do that with those songs, like, why don't we write music like that? Do you know what I mean? So I think that it's almost like fans expect that already in a way where they know that if they've come to see us that we are a pretty, rockin' band live. So it's like bringing that to the record feels natural. And I don't think anyone's like surprised by that,
Well, that's really good.
Yeah.
It's always good when you get that positive feedback from fans, especially from live shows. With this record, Comfort Company, when you were writing it, let's say at that cottage, what was the first song that really made you say, yeah, this is the direction that we want to go in for this record?
Well, one of the first songs we wrote was actually Comfort Company. At least the instrumental. The instrumental came together for that really quick. And I remember we wrote it and we were like, damn, like this really rocks. Cause it's, obviously the song's not out yet, but it's it's definitely the fastest song on the record. It's very stage dive, finger point, that kind of vibe. And we wrote it and we felt really, really inspired. And then I think songs just kept kind of taking shape in that vein. And when they didn't, like, there were definitely some ideas that came about that were a little bit more singer-songwriting, a little bit more, like, hey, almost this might work better on an acoustic guitar. And some of those stuff we thought was really, really cool, but we were like, maybe let's not explore that. So in terms of like it coming together, it was just kind of like, as soon as we started writing, we knew where we were going with this. And like, it was nice to actually, like I told you earlier, to actually have that conversation of, hey, like we're sitting down to write this record. What are we doing? Let's not just start writing and be like, let's see what happens, like let's come up with a goal. So that starts to come together naturally when you have that set goal in mind to write like that.
How did Derrick from State Champs become a thing on Float Away?
Honestly, it was very, very casual. We started talking about, we had a couple other feature ideas and stuff, some stuff that didn't pan out, some stuff we weren't necessarily allowed to do, reasons I can't really say, but like we had like a few different things that were in the works for features. And then Derrick was a no-brainer for us when we were like, oh, we want to get a feature on the record. Like we've toured with State Champs a couple of times. Derrick's our homie. He's always been so cool to us. So Doug just texted him and was like, hey man, want to hop on a song? And Derrick was like, sure. And it was very, we sent him the idea, we sent him the song. He said, hey, I really, really like the song. So let's do it. And it was very, very, very natural, very easy. He just agreed to do it. He sent us over the feature and we really, really liked it. So no, not very hard to obtain at all because he was so nice and so down for it.
Now I want to know about all the things that you weren't allowed to do.
I can't say any names or anything, but we had an idea. We've had ideas for like screamers on one song. Like we were maybe going to get like a metalcore vocalist. Honestly, that one we're kind of like, maybe it would have been a little much for the song. Like the song's pretty heavy, but it would have been like pretty intense for what this record is. And then there was just a couple like homies that we hit up that they would have been down, but it wasn't like a good fit for, they might have been on other songs very recently. And it's like, oh, like they don't want to stretch themselves. Like just be the feature guy. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to, oh, this guy has featured on 6 songs this year, is even in his own band. So like just stuff like that. Nothing like serious or anything that we got like scolded for. Just, you know, like
Yeah, no lawyers threatening you.
no, nothing
It
like
was just
that.
like
No. More so just like, logistically this doesn't work out. You know what I mean? So
the closing track, Let Me Hate Myself, has all of
yes.
you guys on vocals. Talk me through that choice. What does that represent for you guys as a band?
Well, I'm not much of a singer. I can sing a little bit, but I'm not like there's a reason that Doug and Ryan are the vocalists of the band. However, I do have a higher voice than the other guys. Like I can, if I really yell, I can get up there. And so there was a really, really cool harmony idea for the chorus of Let Me Hate Myself. And the other guys tried getting in there and they just couldn't do it. And then I just sat there and I was like, I can try. I'll give it a go, right? And it's really high. Like my face was purple after doing it, and I was, my voice was shredded, but I got it. I managed to hit it. So there's a low harmony that Ryan's doing, and then the main vocal Doug's doing, and then I'm doing the very high, which is it's the exact same thing, but like octaves up. So there's like 3 octaves of our voices that are all natural. And one is really low and one's really high. So that was basically the choice was, hey, this harmony is way too high for the other guys. Do you want to get in there? And I said, sure, why not? And that's kind of the only reason it came about. There's been a couple other times where I've done really, really high harmonies, but usually they're not as prominent. Usually it's just like a line or two where it's like, oh, that can't be reached. And it's like, oh, you wouldn't even sing that harmony live. It's just for a cool, like,
I was going to say, like, are you going to be doing this song live? It's turning you purple, or
I don't know. Like, see, that's one that if we do end up playing that live, I don't know if we will on this coming tour, but if we do ended up busting it out, yeah, I probably would give it a go, but I'll have to train a little bit for sure.
You got to get on the exercise bikes and just start singing as much as you can to try to hit those notes or something.
As a guy with asthma, I need to work on my lungs. So I feel that.
Honestly, I didn't realize how much went into a lot of bands' performances and preparing for tour. And I remember interviewing Dan from the Wonder Years at When We Were Young last year. And I asked him, like, how do you prepare for something like this and for a tour? And he's like, oh, I just hop onto the Peloton or whatever, the bike, and I just go through my entire set and sing it. And I'm just like, that is crazy. Cause I can cause he, you got that energy, right? Like, I guess you gotta to be hitting those notes and running around the stage. And
I guess if you can do it while you're biking, then you can move around a lot on stage. So
yeah,
that makes sense. Honestly, I should probably start taking that advice.
You guys have toured with some pretty heavy hitters. You mentioned state champs, Neck Deep, Less Than Jake. What's one thing that you've learned from sharing the stage with these kinds of bands? Oh
man, I feel like you learn something new every tour. To be honest, like especially when you're touring with bigger bands who've been doing it for so long. There's been a lot of one thing that I learn more and more about every single time we tour with a bigger band is flow of the set. We struggled with that for a while. I feel like we've found our lane and we know what we're doing now. But like I see it from State Champs is exceptionally good at it. 4 Year Strong's another band we've toured with who I love the flow of their show. We don't do like, especially for us, we don't do a lot of talking. We don't do like a lot of like in between banter that, the classic banter that every band does. Like we do some of that, but we don't do as much of it. And we really see it. What I found is like, we used to just after every song, stop, tune up, go into the next one, and now like learning how to like, oh, how can we fuse songs together where it's like, oh, the song ends and there is such a natural progression to the next song that you don't even notice the song ended. You know what I mean? And so that is one of the main things that I feel like we've picked up on touring with other bands is just observing how other bands like, man, how do you get to the next song? And how do you build out a set list that actually flows and makes sense? So that's one of the biggest takeaways I think I would say. And then the other thing is just learning the logistics of touring and seeing what works. The first time you go on a big support tour, we had no idea what we were like. Some guy comes on, hands me $10 and he's just like, yeah, here's your buyout for the day. I'm like, what the hell is a buyout? Like, I don't know what that is, So like, and that was back when we were just starting out. And now, all the logistics of everything. Like I handle a lot of like the tour managing on tour. So like I've gotten to learn a lot from other tour managers about like, hey, what do I look out for? And this is the first time we're doing headline shows without a tour manager. So I've been able to pick the brains of other tour managers that I've toured with and like, hey, how do I advance this tour? Like, what do I do? How am I figuring this out? And what should I ask for? And what should I be saying? And a lot of them have been very, very helpful to me. So picking up that information has been very beneficial.
Yeah, I imagine, especially as a young band that's, doing a lot of it on your own, like learning how to do that portion. Definitely, I can imagine that's a big help.
Yeah, definitely. And what's really cool is like you very, very rarely, I mean, there's been a couple cases, but like for the most part, you very rarely run into a band who's not willing to share all of their insight and their knowledge. Like everyone's helping each other. And that is what's super cool.
Yeah. And I think that's a really cool part of this scene, and why I think I love this scene so much is because it really is a community. In a sense of whether it's bands or fans, like everybody wants to help each other out, which is nice. And you don't really get that everywhere, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like even in the, we're fortunate enough, like we rent an RV every tour now and we have places to stay. But like back then, like if it wasn't for fans offering us places to stay, I don't know how we would have survived. Like we would have been very financially in the hole. Because lots of fans let us stay with them, or they would, we have fans that would come up and be like, hey, I work for a hotel. I've got you on a room. Don't worry. And it's just like, how does that happen? But like,
huge.
It's huge. It is. And, fans, and even just fans coming to support, fans coming and, buying your merch, coming and buying a ticket to the show, literally just coming to say what's up. Like, it's just, it really is uplifting. And it is, like you said, we're all in this together, whether you're a band member, a crew member, a fan, or you're working for the venue. Like we're all in this together. And it's just nice that everyone's 99% of the industry is very, very willing to help each other out.
Yeah. Which is really nice.
Yeah.
Bearings has your own fan base already. New fans though, if they're discovering you from this record, Comfort Company, what do you hope that they take away from it as who you are as a band?
I just hope that people see it as honest and fun. That's what I want. I want people to listen to, like, especially with our new record, we literally said, we just want to put out a fun banging record that people will enjoy listening to. And I really hope that anyone who hears it, and whether you are a newer fan to pop punk where you don't really know much about pop punk, maybe you fall in love with it the same way that we did hearing bands. And if you are already a fan of pop punk and you've never heard of us, I hope that you hear it and you get nostalgic and you hear, you feel something from your youth when you listen to the music. Cause like the same way that there's certain bands like, The Story So Far putting out a new record or something, or, I'm just using them as an example, but like I listened to their new record and it doesn't seem like a 2024 record. It feels like it could be straight out of, 2010, which is like that's nostalgic for me. And I love that, and I feel that way about a lot of the bands, is that like bands who are in this pop punk scene, they're bringing something new, but still gives me that feeling when I first heard All Killer No Filler by Sum 41, or when I first heard Enema of the State, and I hope that we can do that for people as well.
Yeah, it's like the new nostalgia.
Exactly. Yes. It's like new nostalgia, where it's like, oh, this is something new, but also makes me think of this thing that I love, so. Speaking
of that, a big part of this podcast is to grow the scene, to share our love of this music. It's why it's called OurSpace. It was kind of like, it's not MySpace, it's OurSpace. But realistically, the whole, spirit of MySpace was connecting with the bands that you love and finding new bands. So as part of that, I typically ask every single guest, who are you listening to right now that you feel is underrated that more people need to be listening to?
Okay, my number one, I'd say right now, would probably be the band Bike Routes. They are about to go on tour with Young Culture, who are having their final tour at the end of November and into December. And I would heavily, heavily recommend people check out Bike Routes. really, really good, really honest sounding music. Here, let me pull up my Spotify. Who else am I listening to right now? You know,
Bike Route's also either just opened for Spanish love songs or is about to. I'm not quite sure because that stop is not happening. That tour is not stopping in Toronto, so I'm not sure when the dates are.
Fair.
But when I saw them open it up for Spanish love songs, I was like, "Who is this?" And then they started popping up in my For You page and whatnot, and they're really freaking good.
Yeah, they're super, super cool. And then we're taking out some really cool bands on our headline tour. House and Home and Second Harbor are both fantastic. Actually, Second Harbor released a new song today, and it's killer. Definitely would recommend checking out those. Bike Routes is another, like I said, underrated band. I'm also really into Harrison Gordon. I don't know if you know Harrison Gordon, but I love Harrison Gordon.
Love Harrison Gordon. I've had him on the show. I've hung out with him a couple of times when he stopped through Toronto. Harrison Gordon's freaking awesome. And I also I got to promote this because it's the podcast, but I also have an interview with House and Home coming out soon as well. So it's either going to have just be coming out before this chat or it'll be right after. So if you're watching this chat and you enjoyed this chat with Collin, then make sure you also go and look for the chat with House and Home as well.
I love that. Yes, of course. You gotta plug it, man. I understand.
If there's one place to plug your own stuff, it's on your own stuff, right?
for real, yeah. So yeah, I think that's a solid collection of bands I would say are kind of underrated and deserve a little bit more attention.
What do you want people to know about Bearings before we wrap up? Is there anything other than something else that we haven't talked about or anything else that you wanted to promote?
I guess just that I want people to listen to like Comfort Company, and I hope that they can connect with it. In terms of what I want people to know about Bearings, I feel like there isn't much else to say. We're pretty open about who we are, and we're ready to hit the road this fall, and also to hopefully play some more shows next year and really promote this record as much as we can.
Well, Bearings might be coming to your city, so make sure you go and check out their tour dates, grab some tickets, and watch out for their new record out November 7th. Comfort Company, go and pre-save it on your streaming service, pre-order the record, all of that fun stuff. And remember to also subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow, rate, and review the show as well on your podcast preferred platform as well. Thank you so much for joining the show today, Collin.
Thanks a lot, Matt. Awesome to be here.
Thank you for listening to OurSpace with Matt Batiste. If you enjoyed yourself, please support the show by subscribing and leaving a review.